Welcome back, you bloody legends. And in today's video, we're going to talk about reading slumps because boy, have I been in one. Yes, I have. Took me about 4 or 5 days to get out of this reading slump, but I thought it'd be a cool idea to talk to you about what I do when I get into a reading slump, some habits I've changed to try and take the pressure off reading, and just some hints and tips. So hopefully if you get in a reading slump, I can help you get out of it. Because I'm not likely to finish another book between now and the end of the month, I also want to talk to you about every single book that I read in August, everything that I plan on reading in September, and then just a few thank yous for a couple of bits of book mail that I've received recently off my wish list. Starting off with the first book that I finished in August, it was S.A. Cosby's All the Sinners Bleed. And I bloody enjoyed this book, really enjoyed it. It was the first book I'd ever read by this author, so I didn't really know what to expect, but I always like reading new authors because it's just mysterious, isn't it? It's new writing styles, new plot lines, new characters, and that's exactly what I got from this. But it reminded me why I love thriller books. It just gave me everything I wanted. It was quite fast-paced, short chapters, engaging, gripping. Like, you're forever through this story thinking, like, who done it? But the story itself was different to a lot of thrillers that I've read. This starts off in a town where you've got this black sheriff called Titus, who is the first ever black sheriff in the deep South America, in this town where there's a lot of racial divide, a lot of racial hatred and prejudice. And he's almost trying to prove to the people that the colour of his skin won't dictate how he polices. Policemen that come before him, or sheriffs that came before him, were almost like in the pocket of the community. People played a large part in dictating how the sheriff policed this town. And he's like, nah mate, not doing it. So from the get-go, there's a police shooting, but the perpetrator in the shooting is a young black kid. So this police shooting happens, he's stood at the top of these steps. It's not really spoilers because this happens right at the start of the book. Something happens and the investigation starts. But the victim in this shooting is a school teacher, and it's a teacher that everyone loves. He's the favourite teacher. All the parents are like, why would you shoot him? He's insane. Everyone loves him. All the kids love him. The community loves him. This is obviously a troubled child who's just come to school for one reason or another and has shot an innocent man. But the police officer's like, I've got to investigate. And the town are like, there's nothing to investigate here. Batshit crazy boy shoots innocent teacher. So Titus is like, chill your beans, let me do my job. So you've got this undertone of like racial prejudice in the background. They all think that he is investigating this because it's a black kid that did it, and he's a black police officer, so he's almost trying to prove the kid's innocence to prove that not all black kids are the same. But there is so much going on in this story. There are links to the church and how the church has played a role in this community. There is the mystery behind what's happened with this teacher in this school, and is there more to this story than meets the eye? Yeah, there is. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but there's just so much in this story. What I really like about this as well is that a lot of thrillers can deal solely with plot. The author spends a lot of time trying to keep the plot moving, make it really fast-paced, and just grab you with plot. But S.A. Cosby spent a lot of time, for me, building Titus Crown, who is the main character in this. He just felt like a really real character. You get introduced a lot into the culture of this man's world and his life. It screamed like cornbread, fish and collard greens. I'm not from America, but it just made me feel like immersed into what it would be like living in a stereotypically black cultural life in that part of the world, and maybe the prejudice that you receive, you know, trying to work in especially the police department in that part of the world. And I appreciated that. I would assume that the author was trying to portray something like that, being that the author himself is an author of colour. And I think it's important that you try and get the meanings within books like this as well, because it just feels to me like wasted literature when we read books like this solely for the plot, when the author is quite clearly trying to show you a worldview through different eyes. And I definitely opened my eyes while reading this entire book. It opened my eyes to different worldviews, to different cultures, and to different struggles as well. Really good book, and I highly recommend it. I've also been told that S.A. Cosby writes better books than this one, which blows my mind. I think one's called like Razor Blade Tears or something like that, so I'm really excited to try and read that one. Next up, the second book that I read in August was Hyperion by Dan Simmons. This was a buddy read with Macaulay, and I DNF'd it at chapter 2. This was a me problem, not a book problem. I can understand why lovers of sci-fi think this is one of the best sci-fi books of all time. I do, and it was probably my fault for going into this too soon. The only reason I picked this book up is because I loved Red Rising and Project Hail Mary, and the way my brain works is if I read a sci-fi book and I love it, I then automatically think I'm like a sci-fi superfan, and this proved I am not. Growing up, I didn't watch any sci-fi programs, I didn't read any sci-fi books really, so I shouldn't have gone into this, which I would class as more of a epic sci-fi. You know, you're traveling to different planets, you're meeting different races and different cultures that are on other planets. For me, it was just very bizarre. The first chapter, oh, there's a stupid fly. That fly's distracting me so much. I hope you can't hear it on camera. And if you can get as frustrated as I am right now with that fly. Get out my window. Where was I? So this follows 5 people who are on this mission to this planet called Hyperion, and they're going there to try and save civilization because there's this cataclysmic event, is that what you call them? Basically, this whole planet is going to hell unless these 5 people get there and save it. But you're following the stories of these 5 people to make you understand why the planet is important to them. The first chapter follows a priest who has got like a weird obsession with this race of people that are on this planet. There's a lot of links to religion, there's a lot of mystery in it, and it intrigued me enough to make me keep going. Didn't blow my mind, but I was like, all right, cool, it's okay. I'll read chapter 1. Chapter 1 complete. It then gets to chapter 2, which follows this like space combatant. He's like John Wick of Hyperion. He's a soldier, he's hard, but he's weird. He has these weird VR obsessive orgies with this alien. It is so strange. So without giving you any spoilers, it really is like Ender's Game meets some weird VR alien orgy. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I didn't think the battle scenes were that great. I just didn't care about the character. I thought it was weird. And at that point, I got to the end of chapter 2 and I was like, this really isn't for me. I don't understand it. I just don't think that this is a side of sci-fi that I need to be sat on. But I'll give chapter 3 a go. I got about 4 pages into chapter 3 and I was just like, I'm not enjoying it at all. I messaged Macaulay. I was like, dude, I'm not enjoying it. I'm going to give up. So I did. I gave up, and then Macaulay messaged me after and said, I finished the book. There's a chapter with a dude called Sol, and his story is spectacular. So I'm probably going to go back to this at some point and read Sol's story, but I'm not going to go any further than that. I just didn't enjoy it. But again, the writing's fine. The plots themselves are very sci-fi-y, if sci-fi is even a word. And I think if you enjoy sci-fi, it's definitely one that you're going to enjoy. I think I just shouldn't have picked it up and I should have chose something different. So no hate to the book. I just didn't enjoy it. Then I went into the series that put me into a reading slump. Oh, nearly dropped it. This, the First Law Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. This was fantastic from start to finish. I have no notes. It genuinely delivered in every aspect of, I think, what the author were trying to deliver. I'm going to talk you through what the story's about before I tell you why it put me in a reading slump. So book 1, The Blade Itself, is the book that gets the most criticism when it comes to the First Law Trilogy. Everyone says this is the weakest book. If you can get through this and keep going, it pays off. I'd agree with that. I do think book 1 is the weakest book of the 3. However, I thoroughly enjoyed book 1. For people that like the works of like Robin Hobb, I'm trying to think who else does really good character work. Robin Hobb is the one that sticks out to me. She fleshes out her characters so well and spends a lot of time with the characters, and Joe Abercrombie does exactly the same. But book 1 really is an introduction to these characters. It makes you understand that these characters aren't necessarily the good guys. You could quite easily be following the bad guys, and somewhere else on planet Earth there might be a story of the other point of view that portrays them as the good guys. And I wouldn't argue against that. But you can't help but root for these characters. You start to understand the motivations, you start to understand the reasons why they are maybe making the wrong decisions sometimes. And you can't always disagree with the decisions that they make. But it highlights that, you know, when you surround normal people around really horrific situations and really traumatic events, that sometimes they will do anything to survive. And these characters appear to be doing just that, just surviving. So in book 1, you've got an introduction to this world. You've got a subtle introduction to a really soft magic system, to a bit of history of this world. But you've not got much more than that, really. It really is like the best prologue I've ever read. Book 2 then turns to more of like a quest, a there and back again adventure, which I absolutely love. But you've also, at this point, started to really like some of these characters. You've also really disliked some of the characters as well. But you've got a quest, and it's one of the ballsiest endings to a book 2 in any trilogy I've ever read in my life. And I think some people would read the end of book 2 and be like, I'm not reading any further, because you don't really get anything that you want. And if there's one thing I learned by the end of this trilogy, it's that Joe Abercrombie isn't going to deliver what you expect or what you want. He's going to deliver the likely outcomes in a world full of greed and war and violence. Book 3 is then one of the best fantasy books I've ever read in my entire life. Book 3 deals with the war and the aftermath of war, but Joe Abercrombie's got a way of writing battle scenes like I haven't read before. It's not like John Gwynne, where you're going to have epic battles that get you out of your seat and make you want to like scream at your page and like go on, stab him. It's not. They are just guttural, they are dark, they are real. And that's the best word I can describe not just the battles, but the characters, the world, everything that Abercrombie writes just feels very real. The characters' motivations feel real. The personalities, the dialogue feels real. The battle scenes feel real. And the way that battle scenes are portrayed and the characters within the battle scenes, it's just spectacular. You know, I think a lot of fantasy books, you read battle scenes and these really strong characters, really brave characters go into these scenes fearless, like without a fear in the world. They just go in, they deal with it, and they walk out. You're not going to get that in these books. The characters are scared. They're truly petrified, and when they get out of these battle scenes, they are thankful and they're just buzzing to be alive. And for me, I appreciated that, because sometimes I get sick and tired of just reading the constant heroes who are fearless, step into battle without a care in world. They're just like, yeah, I'll deal with that. I'm bred for this. Whereas in this book, you are following, 30-year-old, 40-year-old people who've done nothing but battle all their life, but it still feels very real. The fear of battle is always there with them. I loved it. I really did. But it put me in a reading slump. And the reason it put me in a reading slump is because I got all the way to the end of this trilogy and I thought, you know what? I've not really been given anything that I want. There are so many opportunities throughout this entire trilogy for characters to redeem themselves, and you think to yourself, right, I'm so excited to watch this redemption arc, and 9 times out of 10 you're not going to get it, but it's real. And that's what I keep saying with this series. It is so real. Why would a character or a person spend 35 years of their life doing horrific things, surrounded by war and battles and treachery, and then within the space of 3 books just change? It's very unlikely to happen. Even though I love that happening and I love me an happy ending, I appreciate the fact that Joe Abercrombie in this series stays true to humanity and human nature, and he didn't really veer off track. I appreciated it, but it doesn't mean that it made me even remotely happy at the end. By the end of it, I was truly deflated, miserable. I just didn't get anything really that I wanted from it. So I didn't enjoy it. I don't think there's much of that series that I can say that I enjoyed, in a sense that it made me happy, but I absolutely got to the end of it and I was blown away with just how a perfect representation it was of how humanity would deal with these sort of situations, and it just felt very, very realistic to me. So thanks, Joe Abercrombie, for making a spectacular piece of fantasy literature, but also not thanks for putting me in a massive reading slump. Next up, and the only other book that I completed in August, which is this month, was Here Today, Gone Tomorrow by Eric Ugglan, which is book 2 in the Good Guys series. It's a little RPG. If you've read Dungeon Crawler Carl, it's on a similar vein, but for me, it's a little bit more light-hearted. Don't get me wrong, the battle scenes are really gory and stuff like that, but it doesn't necessarily cover as darker themes as Dungeon Crawler Carl gets into. Some of the characters and stuff are just funny. There's loads of banter. It just feels like an easier read than a lot of other books. It was exactly what I needed. I really enjoyed it from start to finish. This is the second book in the series. I've read the first 2, really enjoyed them both, and I'm definitely going to continue in this series. I'm not going to talk to you about plot and stuff like that, because I think it's one of them that you need to just pick up and read. I believe that they are free on Kindle Unlimited, which is where I read them. I'm sure I remember them being free. I don't normally get stuff on Kindle unless it's free, because I'm tight. And book 1, I think, is also on the Audible Plus catalogue, so that's free as well if you pay for Audible. I know that everyone's cancelling Audible and stuff at the minute. I am so torn between the whole Audible cancellation thing. And the reason I'm torn between it is, for anyone that doesn't know, Audible is changing the way that they pay authors, and it's not for the good. They are forcing authors to use Audible as a platform on the Audible Plus catalogue, and if they don't use Audible specifically, just Audible, and don't go anywhere else, then they're paying them pittance. The reason I'm not sure about this whole cancelling of Audible is because there are a lot of authors who do specifically only use Audible because of that, because of the fact that Audible will pay more to these authors. So by cancelling Audible, all of the authors that are tied into Audible already are basically just going to lose out on a living. So I don't necessarily think that cancelling Audible subscriptions and things like that should be the thing. There's got to be a better way than that. On top of that, I don't necessarily love this whole boycotting culture that we seem to come to, where someone is painted as a bad person because they use a certain product. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the way that Audible is currently practicing its business at the minute. Audible is owned by Amazon, I believe, and they're a conglomerate. They're greedy, the money grabbers. They take from the bottom and they give to the top. I hate it, but I also buy from Amazon. It don't make me a bad person, and I don't like the idea that people come online and say to people, you need to boycott this company because X, Y, and Z. It's affordable for a lot of people, and for a lot of people who can't necessarily afford to pay for single-use audiobooks, Audible Plus Catalogue is a good way for people to be able to make audiobooks accessible. So I think that's a deeper conversation for a different time, but that's just something for you to think about. That book is on Audible if you want to listen to it for free, but it's not free because you have to pay for Audible catalogue stuff. But it's only a one-off charge, and then you get a few books on there. So yeah, really enjoyed that book. Then, I was in a reading slump because Joe Abercrombie. I actually read Air Today, Gone Tomorrow before, but I'd already done this video and stuff, and we don't edit, do we? So, a bit late now. So, after reading the First Law trilogy, deep reading slump. So, I read a few books, just couldn't get out of my reading slump. I was just like, oh, what do I do? So, I picked up a few books, they all failed. Then I picked up Ben Aaronvich's Rivers of London. I got like 84 pages into it, 85 pages I got to, and it was okay. No, the book was good. The book was really good, but I just wasn't in the mood for it. It gave me everything I wanted. It follows I don't know what they call him, not like a proper policeman, but he's a probationary constable. So I don't know if it's like a PCSO. They are doing training to be a full-time constable. And it turns out that this dude can talk to the dead. And he's using his supernatural ability to try and help him solve cases, but working with the police and other departments and stuff like that, because he's not a fully fledged police officer yet. He was really funny, a lot of British humour. I think this book is going to hit better for people that live in England rather than people overseas, because the humour is very British. So I loved it. There's mentions of like British shops and things like that, even a mention of Waterstones. So when I read Waterstones, I was like, bookshop, loved it, just geeked out and stuff. But it just weren't ticking the box for me at the time, so I actually closed that, and I'm going to come back to it because I definitely plan on finishing it, but I just needed something that was proper going to make me just desperate to read again. Because although I'm a big advocate for taking pressure off myself when it comes to reading and doing other things, I also love to read, so I just want to do what I love. But I do think that too much of a good thing can just be too much. Speaking of reading slump, I'm going to tell you what I do when I get into a reading slump, and it's what I started last year. It's just completely taken the pressure off me as a reader. So I'm very obsessive when it just comes to my personality. I can put a lot of pressure on myself to do the things that I love, and if I don't read every single day, or historically if I didn't read every single day, it could put me in a really foul mood where I'd just be miserable walking around the house like a 10-year-old kid, like I just not got what I want. And my wife would be like, what's the matter with you? So, I ain't read today and I need to read, it's bothering me. So she'd be like, go upstairs and read for 20 minutes. But it just wasn't healthy, and it was making reading become a bit of a chore, because I was like, if I didn't do it, it weighed on me. So I made a conscious effort to just take the pressure off of reading and pick up books when I fancied it. Or if I wasn't fancying a certain kind of book, just put it down. If I didn't fancy reading, I might pick up my Nintendo Switch, or I might go and play tennis. And that's what I'm doing now. And for me, I'm reading less books, but I'm also enjoying the books that I'm reading so much more. So that's why I put down Rivers of London, because it was good, but I know I'm going to enjoy it a lot more later on. So I put that down, and then I picked up this absolute bloody spectacular piece of literature, and I just didn't expect it, because as a lot of you know, I've read a few Stephen King books. He's been hit and miss. Some I've really enjoyed, some I just really haven't enjoyed. And I picked this up just not knowing what to expect at all. It follows a young lad. Well, actually, I'll start from the first chapter, because the first part of the book follows an ex-police officer called Tim Jameson, who was dismissed from, I think, like the FBI or LAPD or something. He was in quite a reputable position within a police force somewhere in America. But he did something wrong, which you find out a bit later on in the first part of the book, which led him to have to hand his notice in. He's then on a bit of a mission to get to New York to find some security work. And then en route, he comes across this town called Maine, I think it is, and just picks up a part-time job working for the sheriff's office as a door knocker. So he's going around like a PCSO, knocking on doors, just being a presence in the community, trying to put people off being feral and committing crimes. So that's the first kind of chapter. You're just getting an introduction to him. He feels like a nice guy, and he kind of grabbed me straight away. Stephen King, there's no disputing that he's good with characters, and you're either going to love or hate his characters. And so far, Tim seems cool. I like Tim. Then after the first part, it jumps straight to this really super smart 12-year-old called Luke Ellis, who's got an exceptional gift. And it's not much of a spoiler, really, because if you read on the back of the book, you find out that these really smart kids are getting abducted and taken to this institution. These children have either got telekinesis or, what's the other one called? Telepathy. So they can either move stuff like Carrie can with the mind, like just flicking stuff everywhere, like pots and stuff. Light switches, I suppose. She could do that if she wanted to. Or they can read minds. So this dude, this young lad, Luke, may or may not go missing and may or may not get kidnapped to this institute. You're then within this institute and you're following all these kids. It's just grabbed me, literally, from the first page, which I didn't expect, because a lot of Stephen King books bore me to death. The dude loves to waffle. A lot of his books, I think, what he says in 700 pages, he could say in 350. I'm not finding that at all with this. It grabbed me from the get-go. I think in page 30, there's like quite a traumatic thing that happens, and I was just like, go on, Stephen, you get into a point, you're moving this plot quick, and I love it, I'm here for it. The only thing I'm struggling to get used to with Stephen King is it's a pro and a con. I'll tell you the pros first. Stephen King writes adolescence better than anyone I think I've ever read before. I just find that when I read children in his books, it makes you feel like a kid again. He just seems to know childhood and what it is to be a child. But I think one of the ways that he does it can just be a little bit uncomfortable sometimes for me. So there are a couple of passages in this book. One of them that just really sticks with me is an introduction to a young girl. This girl's maybe like 12 or 13 years old, and it's just the way that he describes how her bosoms are growing and her body is changing and things like that. I just think, as an adult reading that, I'm just kind of like, I don't need to know that this 12-year-old kid's starting to develop. I don't need to know that. But then on the flip side, I think it's one of the reasons that it also makes the children within his books feel real. Because as a 12, 13-year-old kid, I was inquisitive about the opposite sex. I was inquisitive about the female body, which I think you are. When boys start to go through puberty and things like that, these are things that you're interested in and things that you think about. So I think on one hand, it can be quite uncomfortable because you're thinking to yourself, why is a fully grown man talking and describing the body of a young girl? But I think the only reason it can sometimes be a bit uncomfortable is because a lot of his books are written in third person. If they were written in third person, it almost puts you into the mind of the child and you're like, right, okay, I understand it. This is from the child's perspective, not from the author's perspective. So I'm just trying at the minute to understand that one of the things that makes Stephen King so good in the way that he writes about adolescence is the fact that he just seems to understand the mind of children, and he obviously has a good memory of what it was like to be a kid and just writes it deeply into his books. But there are certain things that are just going to make you're uncomfortable. There was a passage that's recently happened where he was talking from, what's his name, Luke. The kid's called Luke. He's like 12 years old, and Luke was looking at another child and almost fantasizing about this child. So I think it's just trying to remember that this is from the perspective of the kid. So it's basically a kid just going through emotions and feelings that kids absolutely go through, and it makes the characters feel real. I just need to get used to this and understand that that is part of Stephen King's way of writing and stuff like that. I am told that there's a really, really awkward scene in It, the book that he writes, where again he uses children within that, and like writes quite an uncomfortable scene. I don't know what it is because I haven't seen the film and I haven't read the book, but I've been warned. Someone said to me, when you read It, I'd love to know what you think at the end of the chapter. So I'm guessing if you lot have read It, you know what chapter I'm on about. I have been warned again that he does write a lot of sexual things about kids and stuff like that, and private parts and stuff. It's going to take some getting used to for me, because I'm not used to that. I haven't read an author before that writes such intimate details when it comes to kids in the books. I don't think, though, it takes away from the book, because I have sat with myself and I've sat with my thoughts, and all of these things that I'm saying to you, I'm telling myself, right, okay, he's not being a creepy weirdo. He's just using this as a way to get you into the mind of the child and make you think what these kids are thinking. And I think it does a good job. I think. I don't know. I'm going to have to keep going, but it definitely hasn't taken away from the plot itself. The book itself has grabbed me from start to, I think I'm on page like 130. There's not a bit of the book that I've been bored in. So that is everything that I've read up to now this month. Now, the books that I'm really excited to read next month in September, I've structured September a little bit because I wanted to try something different and just see if it helps me stay out of a reading slump, because there's some books that are on my shelf at the minute that I'm just buzzing to read. So I thought, well, if I know I'm buzzing to read them, why don't I try and structure it and choose these books as the books I want to read next month. So that's what I've done. I can't promise I'm going to stick to it, but I do plan on sticking to it. So the first book, I have tried to put these in a priority order as well. The first book that I'm desperate to read in September is this one, Evan Winter's The Rage of Dragons, which is book one in, I believe, a series that's going to be a quartet, if that's what you call them, 4 books anyway. And the reason I'm so excited to read this is because after I read the First Law trilogy, I went onto Google, as you do, and I typed in, I want to read a fantasy book that's not got loads of political intrigue, because I find that when I'm in a slump, if I'm trying to get back into fantasy, sometimes removing the politics of it and all the different royal families or political parties, removing that from it just removes a layer that I don't have to think about, because it can get a bit overcomplicated sometimes. I love vengeance stories and They're Back Again quests. They just excite me. And this came up as highly recommended as a really good vengeance story. And I thought, well, that's actually already on my shelf, so let me dig a bit deeper into what it's about. So it turns out that this is a story that follows a main character called Tao or something like that. There's no blurb on back of the cover, which really bothers me. But I think it follows a guy called Tao, and he's in a world that is heavily inspired by Zambian culture. So tick straight away, I've never read a fantasy inspired by African culture, so that's exciting. But the world is set where women are magic wielders. So men don't have any magic at all. Women got all the power. But men that come from like a higher social standing are really big and really strong and stuff. And then the smaller men within society, the people at the bottom of society, are quite small and weak. So this Tao fella is just a regular dude at the bottom of society, and something really bad happens to him or his family, and then he just thinks, oh, I'm not having this, I'm going on a mad mission. I don't know what it is. I'm going to guess he might suffer some sort of loss, and then he's like, nah, I'm bottom of the food chain, I'm going ham, I'm taking all these to hell with me. But it sounds refreshing because there's so many stories, like I said earlier in the video, where you just get this hero who's just fearless, can just go and kick ass, and this sounds different. I like the concept of just a regular dude with no powers going up against all these really, really strong people on a vengeance mission. It sounds like John Wick in Zambia, and I'm down for John Wick in Zambia. And again, African inspired is just something I've never tried before, never read it. I'm definitely open to reading different parts of fantasy, different like I just like it when authors try and break the mold and do something a bit different. And this sounds different to me. I also like the fact, after doing a bit of research, that Evan Winter was born in England, which is my neck of woods. I think he now lives in Canada, but I believe at some point he lived in Africa, which is where the Zambian inspiration comes from. You can fact check me on that, but he's been around, he's travelled. But also that he is some sort of kick-ass martial artist. I don't know if it was Taekwondo or Jiu-Jitsu or something like that, but that influenced his writing when it comes to the battle scenes. So I'm told that the battle scenes feel very real. Like they're written like the guy knows how to fight. So that excites me as well. Really, really excited to read this, and that's why it's at the top of my TBR for September. I've got what month we're in then. The next priority that I've got for September is The Green Mile by Stephen King, because obviously now that I'm enjoying Institute, I'm just a Stephen King super fan, so I need to just keep reading. But more seriously, it's because it won the book club read on Fable for this month. I put out 4 books, this, The Raven Scholar, and 2 others, I can't remember what they were. And this won, and I'm really excited for it, because I've actually watched the film, and I love the film, but books are always better, so I'm excited to see how John Coffey is represented in the book, because John Coffey is one of my favourite characters in films ever of all time. Spectacular man. Yeah, so I'm buzzing to see what I think of this. And it's one of Stephen King's shorter books as well. I mean, 420 pages for Stephen King is short. So I'm hoping there's not much waffling going on in this one. So I'm buzzing for that one. The next up, we've got The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. Oh yeah, I need to thank someone for this one as well, because it come off my Amazon wishlist. So this was purchased recently from Gary Holmes. It says, "Hey Tyrone, I'm loving your work. Keep doing what you're doing. I look forward to hearing what you think of this book. All the best, Gary from North Yorkshire." Gary, cheers, dude. I picked this up because I've been told by loads of people it's really, really good. In one of my last videos, I said that I wanted to read this, but I didn't own it. And I said that I thought it was going to be quite a dark book because it's about an AI kind of robot android thing that's enslaved by humanity. So I assumed it was going to be almost like a book about enslavement, and it was just going to have really dark themes in it. And then someone messaged me and was like, no, this is really funny. So I put it on this month's reads because I feel like I need it. I need some upbeat books within my other books just to kind of keep me happy, so I don't get in a miserable state again like I did after the first Law trilogy. So I'm really excited to read that. And what I love about this copy that was off Amazon is I believe they're all short stories, but I believe this is the first 2 in the collection. So 2 in 1. Love it. Next up, and another priority, is Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. This was sent to me as well this month by Marina Chirilla. This says, "Such a fantastic staple. It's a must read and I hope you enjoy it," from Marina Chirilla. So thank you very much, Marina. I read book 1 and 2 of this last year. I did really enjoy it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I think I could have if I'd have left it a bit. I was really struggling mentally when I read this series, and it's not the lightest of fantasy books. There are some dark themes in it, and I just feel like with the release of the book 3, of the 3rd book coming out in November, that now's probably a time for me to reread book 1 and 2 in preparation for November when book 3 comes out. And I just feel like I'm going to enjoy it more because Jay Kristoff's writing, he is just a craftsman. He knows how to use a pen and paper. He's got prose like not many other people can do it the way that he does. His dialogue's really good, and the story follows, if you've not read this, a character called Gabriel de Leon, who is fantastic as a character anyway, but he's been captured right at the start of the book. He's half vampire, half human, living in a world where the sun is no longer. So it's basically 24 hours dark, vampires can reign free, and he is like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He just goes around hunting them. So he's been captured by this dude, and he's interviewing him, similar to like Interview with a Vampire, about how he managed to go on to kill the most powerful vampire that there ever was. So you've got his entire backstory, his entire history in book 1 and 2, and then you're going to get to some massive climax in book 3 that's going to come out in a couple of months. So why wouldn't I read it? I already know it's spectacular, but I just want to enjoy it more. I feel like it was wasted on me a little bit when I read it. So I'm going to try and get through that in September as well. Really excited for that one. Then the last book I want to read in September, which was also sent off my Amazon wishlist by Maruna Chirilla again. She said, "This will leave a mark on your soul, but in a good way. I hope you enjoy it," from Maruna Chirilla. Maruna, thank you so much. Is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This is a book that I'm really intrigued but also really excited to read, because I believe it's a story about 39 women who are imprisoned in a cage, and then a 40th woman comes in. The only people that I've seen review this book are women who said it's really empowering. It's all about empowerment for women, what it is to be a woman, the strength of womanhood, and women, like the strength that can be brought when women work together as a team. Now, the reason that I'm always intrigued by stuff like this is because I've got two girls. Two of my kids are girls, one's a boy. So I always like to read stuff like this to see what I can do as a man around my kids to let them grow up to understand their worth, but also to understand that not all men are the same. You know, men can understand the struggles that women suffer that maybe we don't. But also, as a husband to a wife, I like to understand maybe how I can be a better husband and what positives I can bring to my wife's life that will make her life better as well. I think it's important that men try and read literature like this. I think reading as a whole makes you more empathetic, but I think if you can read as a man literature about women and what it is to be a woman, it just makes you more understanding. I'd like to think I am quite understanding when it comes to my girls and my wife, but I think literature plays a big part in why I am so understanding. That and the fact that I was raised by a single mum with an older sister. A lot of my younger life was spent just surrounded by women, so I am all for learning more and more and more about women. How many times can I say women? But that's mainly the reason why I want to read that. And it's short. It's like 187 pages, which that won't take long at all. The last thank you that I want to do, this was sent through the post this week, which is The Curse of the Mistwraith by Janny Wirtz. So I believe that I added this onto my wish list because someone told me that I need to read Raymond E. Feist, and that Raymond E. Feist does a trilogy with Janny Wirtz, who's one of the best fantasy writers, really underrated. So I went onto Google and this was recommended, so I just chucked it on my wish list. Who sent me this? So Samantha E. Kennedy sent me this. It says, "Hi Tyrone, I really enjoy your YouTube channel and find your honesty and authenticity so relatable. I live with depression and your content brings me joy. Please keep up the good work, from Samantha E. Kennedy." Samantha, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. I don't know when I'm going to read this because I really want to try reading Raymond E. Feist because he's one of the authors that so many people have recommended. I've got The Magician on my shelf, so I think what I'm probably going to do is read the Magician trilogy, because book one's quite thick, but I think book 2 and 3 are quite small. Then read the next trilogy, which I think is co-authored by Janny Wirtz, and then probably go on to read this, which is The Wars of Light and Shadow, which is just written by Janny Wirtz. I know it's not part of the same world, but I want to do it in that order just because there's not always logic behind my decisions, but that is my decision, and that's final. That's it. I've done a lot of talking today, but as I always say, if I've talked a lot, it's because I need to. I am really interested, now that I've done my talking, for you to tell me what books you really enjoyed in August. I'd love you to tell me what you do when you get into a reading slump. Hopefully you're going to tell me that you just don't read and that you do other things that bring you joy, and then you pick up a book when the mood strikes. I also want to know what you are planning on reading in September, so please drop it in the comments. If you haven't already subscribed to the page, please do. It massively helps me out. And give the video a like if I've not already said that. If I have, then I'm just begging at this point. If you've watched till this point, I love you the most as always, and I will see you in the next one. Mwah!